If you're running Braze, your canvas probably looked perfect on the whiteboard, but then the moment that real customers touched it, things got messy. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down exactly why that happens and how to fix these broken journeys in your Braze setup.
Customers don't notice a 5-second delay, but they will absolutely notice inconsistency in messages.
Hi, I'm Risha and I lead the videos here at Mavlers, and I'm joined by Sarthak Banta. He's our CRM strategist and a certified Braze specialist who spends most of his time auditing and fixing broken lifecycle setups. Let's get right into it. All right, so Sarthak, tell us, why do journeys sort of break in Canvas?
Yeah, Risha, honestly, this is where most teams stumble. The problem is that they design journeys around funnels. So think from sign up to trial to purchase. They are assuming a forward only approach or like a linear progression. But in real life, we all know that the real customers will not behave like this. They will binge, maybe come back, maybe use a different device, or even restart an activities weeks after they have performed the first one. That's why when Canvas expects linear movement, it breaks under behavior. The shift that fixes this is designing around progress events, not funnel stages. So instead of assuming someone moves step by step, you let their behavior pull them through dynamically. For doing this, what I do is I recommend 3 practical changes a Braze operator can make. First is they can use event-based entry, not static segments. So by doing this, if someone restarts the activity, Canvas can pull them back in. Second, setting the re-entry limits. So instead of letting same triggers pull someone into Canvas again and again, you can cap it. For example, one entry per 7 days. That way, a single event can loop them through endlessly. And finally, you can add decision splits based on progress events. This can be like completed onboarding, has added something to wish list, or maybe viewed pricing as well. Those markers lets the journey pivot instead of forcing everyone down the same path. So once the team design around progress instead of stages, journeys stop collapsing.
All right, I'm sure that that is already such a huge relief for a lot of operators who are listening, because I feel that a lot of teams, they spend hours debugging Braze, maybe thinking that they have misconfigured something, right? But then in reality, the issue might just have been that the journey was not designed right in the first place. Okay, so now we've got our journeys designed around customer behavior, as you said, right? But then another major issue that we see is that a lot of customers, they end up appearing multiple times or they're re-entering too often, right? So let's address identity and these re-entry loops. What is actually happening in all of these cases, Sarthak?
See, if the journeys are looping, it usually points to 2 things. Either the identity fragmentation has happened, or there is some issue with the re-eligibility settings. So let's address the first one, which is identity merges. When someone moves from anonymous activity or like a device ID to a known profile with email in Braze, what Braze do is it has some merge rules which it uses to merge these profiles. If these rules are not aggressive enough, Braze keeps separate profiles for these customers, one as anonymous, one as known user, and that's what ends up breaking the frequency cap, the suppression logic, and the journey eligibility. Because Braze thinks that these people are different people. So a quick diagnostic that operators can do is search an email, check how many external IDs exist for a particular email. And if there's more than one, merge needs to work. Right now, the merge setting is not properly configured. And when we are talking about the second one, the re-entry side of things, by default, Braze allowed re-entry every time the event fires. So if your trigger events happens multiple times, people keep re-entering. I recommend having a simple guardrail like define re-entry windows clearly, or require completion before re-entry. So if the journey is not completed, people will not enter the canvas until the journey is completed. They can also have a separate entry criteria from event properties that will also prevent them from firing different canvases at once. And trust me, the last one is huge. Remember, entry defines who qualifies, and event properties define why an event is getting triggered. Mixing them is how you loop different communications. We have seen setups where locking re-entry windows alone reduce over messaging significantly, and the impact isn't just operational, because when customers get repeated journeys, think about it, trust drops quickly because they feel spammed. What ends up happening is that the Braze team who is actually sending the campaigns, they will actually feel that they have lost the credibility internally. So fixing this protects both customers trust and team's reputation.
That part about internal credibility is so real, Sarthak, because once your stakeholders stop trusting automation, then everything slows down. It's like that domino effect, right? Um, Now I want to talk about another cause of broken journeys, which is event instability, right? In a lot of the setups that we're seeing events that retry, or they're probably arriving late, or they're even landing at the same time. So suddenly the user ends up in conflicting branches or like duplicate paths, right? So what's happening there, Sarthak?
See, Risha, this is a classic orchestration stability problem. Most comes down to two things: retries and collision. Retries happens when a streaming system sends resends events without a unique identifier. So Brace treats them as new events, so flows fire again and again. And collision happens when contradictory events arrive together, like cancel and reschedule happening within the same second without buffer. So both paths will trigger. What I recommend operators watching to do this is they can add a few simple guardrails. Firstly, always pass unique IDs on critical events. Second, they can add small buffer window. Even a 5 to 10 second window processing time can counter the sensitive triggers and make sure that we are not triggering multiple campaigns or multiple canvases at the same time. And finally, enforcing conditional separation between different channels and different canvases will also help in guardrailing multiple communications being triggered at the same time. These three changes can stabilize a journey a lot. And one important thing that we should remember all the time is that customers don't notice a 5-second delay, but they will absolutely notice inconsistency in messages. So reliability matters most, other than a small delay in speed.
That is such a good way to think about it. Now, let's talk about something that is often missing entirely, which is progress signals, right? Because many teams, they only track the final conversion. And a lot of journeys, they treat purchases or subscriptions as the only milestone. But then we know that behavior that leads up to that actually matters most. So, Sarthak, tell me, how do you design around progress instead?
What happens is, Risha, if you optimize only for the final event, like a purchase event or a subscription event, you will miss out on behaviors that actually predicts. In Braze, we can build journeys to recognize these micro signals and adopt. We can take an example of an e-commerce. If someone is saving a product to a wish list, we think that's a stronger future purchase intent than opening 5 emails. So that means that this customers should be branched out into a nurture, not a trigger discount blast. So we don't want to send this customer a discount blast. Instead, we want to nurture them because they already have shortlisted a project and they have shown a future purchase intent. Similarly, in SaaS, completing onboarding step is more valuable than logging in once. So ensure that each milestone unlocks contextual nudges rather than age-old trial expiry reminder. I can give you one more example. In media, creating a playlist or sharing content is signaling habit building. That's where you lean in reinforcement, not push for upsell yet. In Canvas, we model this as custom conversion events. not just purchases. That way, journey pivots when progress signals happens. Instead of pushing everyone towards the same CTA, messaging adopt to where the user actually is. And when journeys adopt to progress, something interesting again happens. You often improve retention without increasing your messages volume, because your relevance improves. That increases your engagement as well. And isn't that what all of us wants, right?
That is exactly the point. More messaging is not the answer. It is all about better timing and smarter messaging. Now, there is yet another layer here, right? Which is around alignment. Because marketing, product, CX, they often define progress very differently. And that ends up creating so much chaos and so much confusion. So, Sarthak, tell us, how do you actually get teams aligned around the same milestones?
Yes, Risha, misalignment is very common. Ends up happening is marketing tracks, campaign metrics like open clicks and unsubscribes, product tracks, how the feature is being used, what's the consumption, how much sessions are happening, and customer experience tracks the support outcomes. So for a customer, what ends up happening is they are being pulled into different directions and optimizing for different definitions of progress. So I recommend using a shared milestone sequence across teams, and this doesn't have to be complicated. You can use a framework that I can share right now. So I have divided this framework into three industries. The first one will take an example of e-commerce. Remember that progress usually moves from someone just exploring to showing intent to making the first purchase and then coming back again. For SaaS, it's similar, but the signals are different. If someone has signed up or completed onboarding, their experience, their first real movement, and then eventually they will expand the usage of the product. And finally, for media or subscription based products, you often see progression for the first consumption to formation to paid conversion. And then finally, the renewal happens. The exact milestone can vary from business to business, but the principle is the same. Define the movement that shows someone is moving into a deeper relationship with you, and then make sure that team is aligned on those. Talking about defining the movement of maximum intent, we actually have a couple of things that you can go through. So there's an ebook that is available on our website that talks about defining the movement of maximum intent, and we have a whole webinar that we have done with SalesWing that you can go through to understand how you can define movements of maximum intent for your business. Once those milestones are agreed, you can bring them into Braze as events or conversion criteria, and suddenly journey starts working together into instead of just competing with each other.
Now, before we wrap, right, I want to take a moment to talk about sustainability because I'm sure that everyone who is watching, they don't want to end up rebuilding their journeys every year, right? So then, how should teams make orchestration more adaptable rather than rigid?
Yes, Risha, a lot of teams struggle with orchestration, and what I have seen working with a lot of clients around the globe is that teams that move fastest, they treat orchestration like experimentation and not just a campaign. Meaning, instead of big quarterly launches, they consistently run small modular tests. Think of progress-based nudges, adoptive inbacks, or even channel reinforcement experiments, because those tests are lighter, they can iterate faster, and we can identify what works, and then we can scale whatever is working for a particular client. I remember one of our client who is in wellness space made that shift recently, and so instead of waiting months for a big campaign, what they do is they use Braze to run modular tests every week or maybe in 10 days. All those things I've just said right now, right? These include progress-based nudges, adoptive inbacks, cross-channel reinforcement. They call this team or call these experiments their customer experience labs. So in 6 months, they went from doing two to three campaigns for experiments every quarter to running 3 to 4 experiments, small experiments every month. Guess what? Because of these experiments, now they have a new norm. They are able to identify problems quicker, makes more confident decisions, pivot faster. So of course the direct impact was on their retention. See Risha, that's the mindset shift here. Your journeys aren't projects. Remember that they are evolving systems. If you design modularly, you don't need rebuilds. You just adopt, you just optimize.
I love that, Sarthak. Now, before we wrap, if there is one idea that you want every CX leader watching to take away, what would that be?
Uh, Risha, I like to keep it simple. We have to stop designing funnels and start designing progress. Transactions are just one piece of the puzzle. The real growth comes from tracking signals like trust, habits, and depth of engagement, and orchestrating around them in real life. Once you do that, you are not just reducing churn, you are compounding loyalty. And compounding is the keyword here.
Beautifully put. And you know, your idea around journey is breaking not because Braze is flawed, but rather because customer behavior itself is not linear, I feel is the true takeaway from this video. Because once we set up our systems to expect that, then I believe that everything else stabilizes, as you said, right? Now, for everyone who is watching, if this video helped you, share it with someone on your team who owns Lifecycle or Braze. And listen, we've got so many more videos coming on unified profiles and orchestration strategy, so ensure that you are subscribed to our channel already. We're going to see you in the next one.